Let's talk about faith for a moment. Faith is something that's absolutely crazy. I think 90% of Christians this day in time does not fully grasp faith, or their faith. I mean, all Christians, their faith wavers at some point. Everybody. But how much do we limit God because of our lack of faith? How much? You see, Jesus said that, greater things we will do than he did, all right? How much do we limit God by not putting our faith in God? Instead of going to the doctor praying about it, you know what? It's not going to kill us unless God says it's going to kill us. I mean, that's just a fact. Oh, well, God gave us doctors. You might say that. You know what? God may have gave you a doctor so you could get a diagnosis. God didn't give you a doctor so you could take medicine. Go and study pharmakia out in the Bible. You'll find it later in the scriptures, New Testament. I do believe back there around Revelation, it's going to be... in fact, you can just search witchcraft is an abomination to the Lord. Find that in the scriptures, and then study out that word witchcraft right there. You're going to find that word witchcraft means pharmakia. Its origins is pharmakia, which is where the origins of the word pharmacy and pharmaceutical comes from. So you can just study that out if you want to. Either way, people would say, oh, well, God gave us doctors. Right. He may have gave you a doctor so you can get an understanding of what's going on with you, to help diagnose you. But I promise you, he did not give you a doctor so he can give you medicine. And the medicine has more side effects than it does positive effects. Does that sound like God? God wanting you to go and get rid of this ailment, get over this ailment, and get 10 more ailments? Or in the process of getting rid of your headache, ruin your liver, destroy your liver? Does that sound like something God would want to do? I'm just asking. I'm asking. This is my opinion, okay? This is just my opinion. Based off of what I've studied and what I've read. Do you think God really wants you to go and take this medicine? Or consume something that is going to destroy aspects of your body? I don't think so. I don't think so. That don't sound like... That don't sound right at all. Just about everywhere you look in the Bible, you find that the devil's trying to destroy the body, not God. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. Oh, what in the world? So faith. Is it something that, do we limit God whenever we, instead of going to God and relying on God to heal us? Because, that's true faith. Or relying on God to provide something, or help with something, or get you through something, and not relying on man. That's faith. But where is it today? Where is it today? You're going to show me a preacher. You're going to show me a pastor. And there's some out there. I know of some. Going to show me a Christian that says, you know what? I am not touching any pharmaceutical at all, any drug, anything that's made in the lab, all these bioengineered foods. I ain't touching none of that stuff. I'm relying on God to take care of me. God provided us with herbs, and herbs do have medicinal properties. And you know what? If you got the right herb, it doesn't have any side effects. It takes care of you. God made that for us. God didn't make a lab to make a drug that we don't even know what's in it, other than what they say is in it. And then we don't even know how to pronounce the word of whatever's in it. I mean, come on now. Come on. Think about that, man. or relying on man whenever it comes to finances or anything else, like anything. It's easier to look at the pharmacia. It's easier to look at the drugs. It's easier to look at medicines and doctor visits and all, because that's the most prominent thing you can look at across everyone. Every single body, everybody has dealt with that. So it's just easy for me to point it out through there. There's just an example, but you can look at everything else. Are we limiting God? Like, do you believe God is capable of healing you 100% without taking any medicine that man has made? Do you think God can heal you like that? Do you think God can heal you without a side effect? The only side effect I know of when God heals is praise and glory going to Him. Other than with the lepers, not all those lepers, whenever they was healed, gave God all the glory. What is it, only like 2, maybe 3 gave God glory? The rest of them didn't. It's the only side effect I see is giving glory to God and your faith being stronger, growing. It's the only side effect I know of, and that's pretty good, ain't it? See, the Bible says there's nothing good. There ain't nothing good except for God, right? This is paraphrasing, and I will put the verse up here. You go and look at the verse right now. There it is. Like, there's nothing good in us but Jesus. That's the only thing good in us. The only good in this world is Jesus. It's God. It's not us. Oh, well, he's a good man. Right. If he ain't got Jesus in him, he's the worldly definition of a good man, but he's not a good man. It don't matter. It's whatever. Do you really think God can heal you? Do you really think God can heal you? Like, come on now. Do you really think God can get you through this situation? Do you really think God can take you through the next level? Do you really think God can close the door and open another door? Do you really think God can open eyes, close eyes? Do you think so? If your answer was yes just then why do you limit God by praying and then going to man for results? This is my opinion. Like, this is my thoughts. You're more than welcome. I got comments. Go ahead, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. And if y'all want me to do a follow-up video based off of the comments, look, if there's a comment in the bottom that you want me to do a follow-up video on because of this right here, I will do it. Just bring that comment to the top. Keep on bringing it up. I'm new to YouTube, so I don't know what it's called whenever you upvote or whatever it is, a comment. But either way, look, this is what I think. This is my opinion. See, the faith, the Bible talks about whenever the Lord comes back, we'll even find faith, Like, how much faith is he going to find? It's kind of like that Sodom and Gomorrah thing, right? Go over there. If you could find this many, then this many, then this many, he gets down to 10. If he could find 10. Are you part of that 10? If there was 10, now, he didn't get 10 there, but he still destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. But would you be, if there was only 10, would you be one of those 10 that can say without a shadow of a doubt? If there was an ailment taking place, would you? And I'm not talking about like a common cold. Yeah, you might be able to stiff out that common cold. It just might be irritating and all that stuff. I'm talking about an ailment. My family's going through RSV right now, an ailment. I got a little bitty baby in the house. I say little bitty baby, she's small. She's a year and a half-ish. Do you rely on God? Could you rely on God? Could you say without a shadow of a doubt that you could pray to the Lord right now? God, heal this, and continue to pray over it. And give it to God, and never go and take anything that man has made. Just 100% rely on God and His healing power. Do you think you could do that? If you say yes, then and you do take medicine, then why do you take medicine? And I'm, like I said, I'm just using medicine as a reason, as an example. Like, if you say yes, that you do have that kind of faith, then why don't you have that kind of faith if you got a cabinet full of medicine? Why? You gonna come and look at my cabinets? See, this is something God dealt with me a long time ago about. You can't say that you have that kind of faith and never act on that. That's not faith. That's not faith. That's just... Really, I want to know what your thoughts are on it. Do you think that that is a possibility of why this world is missing out, or things are not being done? Or maybe you suffer with a lot of sickness and continue suffering with a lot of sickness. Yes, we're going to suffer with some sickness. But who are you supposed to call on when you suffer on it? God. You know why? So He can get the glory for it. He can heal you. Your faith can be built up. And He can get the glory for it. Let's see. There's an anthill right back here behind me. I don't know if you can see that anthill right there. There's a big old anthill right there. There's anthills all around me right now. Did you know an ant builds an anthill with one little grain of sand at a time? And then it eventually builds this huge anthill. Now, in comparison to a human, that anthill, look, there's another one right there. There's another one right there. In comparison to an anthill, an ant in comparison to an anthill makes that anthill a mountain, right? So see, these little bitty things, rely on God for the smallest things. Let these things happen. You know, your faith has got to be built up over time and by relying on God more. If you're one of those people that rely on the world more than you rely on God, I promise you, you do not have the faith that you think you have. You think you have. And then, yes, I made a promise. That is a promise. If you rely on the world more than you rely on God, you do not have the faith you think you have. Point blank. Point blank. Look at the 10 look at the 10 last things that you've went through that are absolutely crazy in your life. Absolutely crazy. How many of those did you 100% rely on God and not man? How many of them? Like, come on, tell me. Tell me in the comments. I want to hear it. Let's build my faith with your faith. Maybe my faith is building your faith right now. Come on. Iron sharpeneth iron. Let's work together. It's time for us to really put our faith in God. It's time for us to really devote time to God. It's time for us to stand up and rely on God. Sounded like a deer. I don't know. Maybe it was. It's okay. They need a preaching too. That's fine. Look, Isaac was laid down as a sacrifice. And you know what? His daddy did not rely on anybody else. In fact, you know, the only people that went to that mountain so Isaac could be laid down was Isaac and his daddy. That's it. No one else. He didn't rely on man. He relied on God. 100%. Could you lay your Isaac down? That's a tough one. I don't even want to think about like laying my son down like that right there. I don't even want to think about that. I believe without a shadow of a doubt, if that's what God told me to do, I could do it. But I know because of what the Bible says that He doesn't require the sacrifice of flesh and bone no more. Jesus fulfilled that. So if I ever felt like somebody was saying, oh, you need to go and lay your son down, you know what? That's not of God. So I ain't worried about that. I don't have to face that. I will never have to face that. I might have to face a moment whenever my son is sitting before me and somebody's like, if you do not denounce God right now, we're going to kill your kid. You know, I might be faced with that one day. And man, I believe without a shadow of a doubt, I could look my son in the eye, and as they pull the trigger or whatever it may be, I could look at my son in the eye and say, trust God. And they might kill my son. But you know what? I trust God. They take my son, that's okay. God takes a lot of people out of this world every day, whether it's by bullet, cancer, a wreck, drugs, alcohol, stumbling out here in the middle of a pasture filled with thistle, falling and hitting your head on the one rock in the middle of the place, or falling into a trifoliate orange bush and one of these giant stinking thorns coming through, sticking me in the jugular. I mean, people die all the time. I believe that I would have that faith. I believe that I would have that faith. You might be like, oh, well, you can't say that until you're put in that situation. You're right. I really can't. No, I guess, but I can say it. So I guess you're not right, because I can say that. You might not be able to say that, but I can say that. It's easy for me to say it. I just did, didn't I? Now, whenever that time comes, I pray that I'm strong. I pray that I'm strong. That time, that's going to be a really, really hard time if it comes. I pray it never does. But you know what? Laying your Isaac down don't have to be your kid. It could be your cigarettes. Oh, well, I can't get over cigarettes. I can't do it. I've tried to do it, but I have a hard time with it. I can't do it. And I don't want nobody to talk about it. I don't want nobody to mention it to me. I just can't do it. I'm having a really hard time. You know what? You're having a really hard time because you're not relying on God. And you might be like, oh, well, I prayed every time I wanted a cigarette. I prayed. Yeah, did you pray in spirit and truth? How about going to God before you need the cigarette instead of going to God whenever you need the cigarette? Preventative prayer? You know, preventative maintenance? What about preventative prayer? These are thoughts, man. These are what I think about with faith all the time. I read the things in the Bible and I'm like, hey, man, that's what we're going to live by. I trust God with it. No, there's a lot in this. There's a lot in this. But you know what? The biggest thing is could you really rely on God more than you are now? Could you rely on God more than you are now? Is there small things that you can be like, you know what? I do have a cold, but instead of relying on the cold medicine, I'm just going to rely on God and His creation, which, by the way, for a cold, some peppermint tea with a little bit of lemon and some honey in there is phenomenal. Works great. Works great. And guess what? God created the bees that make honey. God created the trees that make lemon. And God created the herb that's called peppermint. Every single one of them was made by God. And you know what? The water that's used to make it, God created it too. Small things. Could you rely on that just over a cold? Look, I challenge you. I challenge you, every single one of you. Whether you are a Christian, whether you're not a Christian, whether you just got saved or whether you've been saved for a long time. It's okay if you've been saved for 20 years and you don't 100% agree with this. That's fine. Or maybe for 20 years you have been that one that calls himself a Christian or herself a Christian and relies on man way more and you just never really noticed it. But now you see And you know what? That's okay. Peter got saved before Paul, and Paul had to go and reprimand Peter. Paul went to Peter and said, "Hey, this is a mature Christian now. Peter is, and Paul's a new convert." Paul had, in relatively as far as time speaking, Paul came to Peter and said, "Hey, you say this, this, and this, but you do this." No. Well, I'm a relatively new convert. I was saved in 2015. Yep, 2015. I do believe that was it. I can't remember. I can't tell you the date or anything. And here soon, let me know if you want to hear my testimony. I'll put it in the comments. If you let me know. I'll make a video on my testimony. Paul reprimanded Peter and said, "Hey, this is what you say, but this is not what you're doing." And I'll give you the text. Here's the text right here for it. What I'm talking about. Go and read it yourself. Study it yourself. It's really good. That's what Paul did. So now here I am, a young convert, okay? A young convert, relatively speaking, to many other people. Do you say it a lot and don't do it? Oh, I have all this faith. 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 But you rely on man more than you do God, or man-made things more than you do God. I want you to check up on your faith. I want you to check up on your faith. I want you to sit down with a piece of paper and start counting out all the things that you rely on yourself, your spouse, the doctor, the pharmacy. I want you to write them things down. And then I want you to start writing things down I want you to write down what you rely on as far as finances. I want you to write down what you rely on as far as healing and medicine, as far as physician goes. I want you to write down what you rely on as far as your home, where you're going to lay your head tonight. I want you to write down whenever you need wisdom, or whenever you have a question about what God's will is or what he has to say, do you go to man or not? I want you to write down all this. And every single one of them, at the top of the page, you're going to say, do I rely on God for this or man for this? And every single one of these things, and you could go through everything in your life, the things that are necessity in your life. I want you to go through every single one of them. And right beside it, I want you to put a yes if you rely on God for it, and put a no if you rely on man for it. Now, I don't care what your opinion is about, oh, well, it is man, God gave us this, or God gave us men that have this knowledge and all that stuff for it. You know what? I don't care about that. Simply let your yays be yays and your nays be nays. Do you rely on God 100%? Yes. If you only pray about it and then you go to man, no. And there's all kinds of things you can write down on that piece of paper. Write down 10 things, 20 things, 30 things, 40 things, whatever it is. I challenge you to do this. And then you sit down and you calculate all your yeses and all your nos. I recommend doing 10 things, just 10 things to start with. If you could do 20, that would be even better. But 10 things would be a great start, because it's easy to calculate. Because if you got 5 saying yes and 5 saying no, well, sounds like you're lukewarm. If you have, say, 7 or 8 saying yes, and the remainder, 3 or 2, saying no, well, you're not lukewarm. You're hot. Or what about if you have the opposite, 7 or 8 saying no, and 2 or 3 saying yes? Well, then you're cold. God says he'd rather you be hot or cold instead of lukewarm. Either way, I want you to think about that, because your faith is going to be built off of these things that you rely on God for. If you don't believe that, tell me. Your faith is built based off of what you rely on God for. It's been a long message. I'm supposed to be out here hunting. And my battery just said 15%. So that's my challenge to you. Where is your faith? And do you truly rely on God as much as you say. My name's Jimmy Whitley. Thank you for watching this video. And if you don't mind, like, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share with a friend. Like, if you know somebody, if you agree with this video, and hit a like, subscribe for more content like this. I got survival content as well. And if you know somebody that's going through something that you think this video would help, man, send this to them. Send this to them, share it with them. If you don't like the video, hit the dislike button. Let me know. If you have some scripture context, or you know what, tell me your extreme faith. Tell me about your extreme faith. That's what I want to hear about in the comments. Really, more than anything, is your extreme faith. That, and do you want to hear my testimony? Thank you for watching this video. I pray you have a blessed day, and I pray this message really helps you. I'm just a man called by God to share the word, and I hope God has used me today to touch you and help you. Look, I love you, and I'm praying for my viewers. I'm praying for y'all that are watching. Pray you have a really blessed day. You take care.